utterly, utterly empty. Hello, I'm hgTudor. I explained a long time ago that this one's wife is essentially empty. There's nothing there. This was picked up on, of course, by South Park with their very memorable parody of This One's Wife and Ginger Bollocks, particularly where he flipped open her head and looked inside and found that she was empty on the inside, which is entirely correct. This one's wife isn't particularly clever. She isn't particularly interesting. She's got no charisma. She's a talent-free zone. What she does is, through character trait acquisition, she gains the characteristics and experiences and achievements of others and bolts them onto herself. This is all done subconsciously in order to create something that outwardly, at least, will attract people to her. But there is no substance to her. She is an empty shell. And this has been demonstrated fantastically by her interaction with a comedian. It also demonstrates once again how often it is that this one's wife fails to read the room or read a situation because of the absence of emotional empathy and her misfiring cognitive empathy. The comedian in question is called Rose Matafeo, not somebody I'm particularly familiar with, but apparently she's aged 31 years old and she's a New Zealand comedian, actress and TV presenter. She was a writer and performer on the New Zealand late-night comedy sketch show Funny Girls. In 2018, she won the Edinburgh Comedy Award for Best Show at the Edinburgh Festival Fringe for her show Horn Dog. She's appeared in a couple of films, Baby Done and The Breaker Upperas, and she's been in numerous things on television, amongst which includes W1A, Funny Girls, Squinters, Taskmaster, Golden Boy, Richard Hosman's House of Games, Starstruck, Big Fat Quiz of the Year, QI, Pointless, The Great Stand Up to Cancer Bake Off. So she often appears as herself as a contestant in many of these programs. So that's a little bit of background on Rose. But where's her relevance to that of this one's wife? Well, Miss Matafeo has recalled an instance where she basically fell on her arse, i.e. wasn't particularly well received at a royal variety performance. She explains, she recalled her excruciating experience of meeting this one's wife at the royal variety performance. Notice she's quite content to speak out about how this was excruciating. In 2018, fresh off her win for Best Show at the Edinburgh Comedy Awards, the New Zealand comic and starstruck creator performed in front of the royal couple at the London Palladium. Appearing on the Dish podcast, Matafeo told host Nick Grimshaw and Angela Hartnett about playing the gig in front of a sea of white-haired people. Gorgeous, gorgeous audience expecting comedy, not expecting the sort of whimsical anti-comedy of myself, she said. I did really bad Christmas cracker jokes, which were intentionally bad. Many people came up to me afterwards going, "Stay at it, keep going, girl." So I think the irony of it really was lost. Thus, her type of comedy was lost upon the audience, which caused her, as the popular phrase goes, to die on her arse. Matafeo then added that Prince Harry and this one's wife had been in attendance. It was Harry and this one's wife as well, she said. She kind of glided over. It was almost like she was on a hoverboard. Now, it's quite interesting to describe that movement, because there are instances where people talk about when they are involved with a narcissist, how the narcissist almost sort of just appears, almost sort of glides up, does so silently, and they're suddenly beside you, that they have this strange ability to creep up on people. And in a sense, here it would appear that this one's wife was behaving similarly as she zoned in on the comedian. Matafeo continued by explaining She glided over like Mrs. Danvers, and she was like, "You must be so proud." And I was like, "Of what? Of dying on my arse in front of fucking royals? Yeah, I'll be writing home about that." That interaction just sums up the emptiness of this one's wife. I should imagine that whilst she was watching the performance, she was switched off. Almost like C-3PO with a switch on the back of his head where he just goes down to standby mode. Why? Well, it's not about this one's wife. She will have perhaps been looking around to see if members of the audience were looking up at her and drinking in those snippets of fuel that came her way. But when it came to the comedians being on stage, that's no use to this one's wife because everybody's looking at them and not her. And in such circumstances, that causes wounding. Now, this one's wife isn't going to give a bellow and jump from the royal box and swing across on some kind of rope hanging from the stage so that she can then land on the stage and go, "Get out of the way, I'll tell some gags instead," in order to draw attention onto herself. Although, as we know, she commonly elbows her way into particular situations. But her facade management wouldn't allow her to do that in order to get the control back. It's possible that she could have remarked to Harry, "Gosh, this is boring, when can we go?" And he agrees, which then gives her a subconscious sense of control. Or she just has to sit there in a state of, "Gosh, well, this is rubbish," and contemplate something else, and then effectively zones out, not taking in anything that's said. And she's just not interested. She's not interested in other people. She's only interested in herself. And that shows as a consequence, because what does she do when she goes up to the comedian? She goes, "You must be so proud." And as the comedian identifies, proud of what? I've just completely died on my arse out there. What a stupid thing to say. And that sums up the emptiness of this one's wife, that she has no interest in what's going on around her unless it involves her, that she can't read the room, so that she ends up making a stupid comment as she did, which demonstrates that she clearly wasn't absorbing the performance of that particular comedian, because if she was, she'd have said, "Oh, I thought you were funny, but the audience didn't get it." Of course, I doubt that this one's wife would have been able to do that because she has no sense of humour herself. And thus, she demonstrates the absence of emotional empathy, the emptiness within, by sidling up to the comedian and making that completely inappropriate and stupid comment, which the comedian picks up on straight away and then later shares to all of us, which provides me with an excellent example for you of the emptiness of this one's wife. I'm HG Tudor. Thank you for listening.